I'm with Michael Hyatt. We're talking about his book, Platform. It is a great book, a step-by-step guide for anything with something to say or sell, but the subtitle, Get Noticed in a Noisy World, is great because it's hard today.
It is.
Get noticed.
It's noisy.
It is noisy. And it's all about how to break out, how to get noticed, how to get traction with your product, service, idea, small business, whatever you're really doing. How do you get noticed that? So I just want to stop, and you run a terrific leadership blog. You've been the chairman, you're the chairman now, you've been the CEO of Thomas Nelson, you've done lots of different things in your life. But this book, Platform, what was the idea? Where did it start that you said, I want to write a book on Platform?
As the CEO of a publishing company, I realized that it was no longer enough to have a great idea. And there's a lot of small business people, there are artists, there are comedians, there are public speakers, there are authors, there are a lot of people out there that think, oh, I've got this great idea, I've got this great concept. I'm saying it's no longer enough. Because I sent those authors packing because they didn't have a platform. So content was king, but platform had become queen. And I said, how could I help these same people build a platform so that they would be taken seriously and so they would get their product or their service noticed? So that was kind of the genesis of it.
And platform today means what? When you define platform?
Yeah, well, let me just say what it used to be. A platform was a thing that you stood on to get your head above the crowd, to gain visibility, and to amplify your voice so you could get heard. In today's environment, it's no longer about a wooden stage or a concrete one. It's really about people, your followers, your contacts, your fans, your prospects. And we're doing this principally through social media. It's not the only way. A platform could be a lot of different things. But social media has made possible what was never possible before, which was that people like us, mere mortals who aren't celebrities, can get noticed in a noisy world. And it's true for anyone.
It is. You watch these different avenues, Twitter, or your blog, or what have you. Almost everyone can create a platform. And it's also difficult sometimes, I think, to run, especially if you run a consumer brand. Everybody can be talking about you. You don't. Yeah. How do you distinguish which voice is important and which one you really can't ignore anyone?
You can't, but the important thing is to be leading the conversation, so that if you're in corporate America, at least you're leading the conversation about your brand, and you're out there among people where the conversation is happening. And I see too many corporations, too many medium-sized businesses, even small businesses, that just refuse to participate. What they fail to recognize is that the conversation is going on with them or without them. And if they enter into it, they can at least influence. If they don't, then they're the victim of whatever happens.
Some of them will just complain that
yeah, exactly.
It didn't happen. Well, I want to talk about this concept that you have in your book. You start with the what and the who. Mm-hmm. So talk about that. The what is the product itself, yeah. The service.
And what I say in the book is that the what still matters. The product, the service, whatever the widget is that you're trying to sell, your business, it matters. In fact, David Ogilvy said this a generation ago. He was an advertising guy. He said, great marketing only makes a bad product fail faster. And it's true. But in a world where everyone has a megaphone and everyone's connected to everyone else via social media, it's, to the 10th power true. It's never been more true than ever. So you've got to start with a great product, a wow product, a product that exceeds people's expectations.
And that's the what. And then you have these 5 directives. So you start, we talked about the power of wow experience.
Right.
And then you have these directives, preparing to launch a home base, extending your reach, and engaging your tribe. Talk a little bit about those in terms of building your platform. Pick one, and I just want to talk about one first for a minute.
Well, I would say, let's talk about the second one, which is prepare to launch. So let's assume you've got a product that you're really proud of and you feel like this is going to exceed people's expectation. Before you roll it out and actually launch it, you've got to do some things, and not the least of which is to work on your own mindset. There's a certain mindset that successful people in an age of social media have, and it's primarily that they're taking responsibility for their own marketing. Doesn't mean they have to do it all, but it means they're looking in the mirror and they're saying, meet the chief marketing officer. You've got to accept responsibility. Accept responsibility for the outcomes. So you may have a lot of people involved, but you've got to start there, and you've got to be willing to persist. Because there's no surefire formula that if you sign up for this program, bam, you're going to have a platform. No, it's going to take persistence, it's going to take some time, but it's possible. That's how you prepare to launch.
How do you, in this day and age, and if you say, oh, I want to take advantage, I've never been on Twitter, I don't do all of that, I don't understand all of that, how does somebody start? Because it can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
You can find something and start looking at, the 16-point plan for this and the 13-point plan for this. Where do you start if you want, you have a small business, I have this great product or service, what do I do next?
Honestly, I would start by creating a blog, preferably. A website is the next best. But you've got to have a presence in cyberspace. And this isn't a social media thing. It's that the web has become the new yellow pages. If you don't exist on the web, your prospects don't think you exist. Because when I hear about a business, when I hear about a person that I'm interested in, what's the first thing I do? I Google them. And if nothing comes up, they don't exist. I mean, for all intents and purposes. So a home base is a spot that you have on the web that you own and control. It's not a Facebook page. It's not a Twitter profile. It's not your LinkedIn profile. It's got to be a spot that you own and control, where you control the branding, you control the messaging, and you're constantly referring people back to it. Okay, so you'll be out there in the marketplace in all those social media areas, but you're constantly referring people back to your home base.
If you think about the fifth point, engage your tribe. You used the tribe, you engaged your tribe in a way that helped create the cover of this book.
Yeah.
And I just found that a fascinating story. Because you didn't sit down in the room one day and design it or get with your Thomas Nelson designers. Talk a little bit about the design of the book.
Yeah, I had this basic premise that's not original with me, but that is all of us are smarter than any one of us. So why not harness the power of our collective intelligence to figure out some of these complex creative problems? And there's a tremendous power in collaboration in doing that. And so I don't care if you're what kind of small business you're in, you've probably got some really loyal fans that you would love to get invested and take even greater ownership in your business or your career, but you really haven't had a means to pull them or to involve them. So I said, hey, I've got this big blog, I've got these followers who want to help. So I had 4 covers designed by Thomas Nelson, and then I went out and I just said, I want to survey which one do you like best. That's number 1. And number 2, what input do you have to make it better? So, people have all kinds of opinions. Some of them I liked, some of them I didn't like, but there was a consensus that began to build. And I realized that the cover that I liked the best, people didn't really like. It was too hard to understand, the type was illegible, and in the former days, back in the old days of publishing, I would have just said, what do they know? I'm just the publisher, I'm going to decide. But I said, no, they're telling me something that's important that can really inform this process and make it better. So we adjusted. We created a second cover and then went out to them with a couple other alternatives. So my most caring fans, my most engaged fans, were integral in the process of coming up with the cover design.
Well, it's fantastic, and clearly you've engaged in a conversation with them for years, because the content of the book reflects that conversation that you've had and the learning that you've had throughout the years. And I know for myself, as I started blogging, it's a roadmap. Really, it's a roadmap. I'm glad I got the early copy. It was timed perfectly. He timed this book perfectly for the launch of my book.
Oh man, I was scared to send it to you.
Yeah.
Because I thought, Skip reads all these books. Oh my God, what's going to happen when he reads this one? But thank you for being such an enthusiastic supporter.
Well, what was great was I could endorse it as a book because I could see it as a way for small businesses to make an impact for their platform, for really anybody who wants to create a platform to differentiate themselves. But also, first I have to say, I first read it for me to say, wow, this is a blueprint.
Good.
So you saved me a lot of time and years. So some of your mistakes, I certainly have benefited from them. So
well, that's exactly what I wanted to have happen, because I said to people, it took me from 2004 to now to build the platform that I have. And some of that can't be short-circuited or shortcut, but looking back now, if I had known then what I know now, and what I've set forth in the book, I could have cut that time easily in half. Because I had so many dead-end roads, so many mistakes, so many knuckleheaded things I did that caused me to learn along the way.
And you were doing it while running a company.
Oh yeah, there's that. And by the way, that's a huge obstacle that people have. They say, well, I'm too busy in my career, or I'm a busy mom, or I'm running a small business. Look, I was the CEO of a company. I mean, I'm not saying it's more busy than anybody else, but it's at least as busy as almost any profession. I mean, you're sitting in that spot. So that is not an excuse. I'm sorry, people cannot take a pass on that.
No, they can't. But I would also say this, as a CEO blogger, what surprised me the most is the number of relationships that I've established that relate directly back into the business. Business opportunities. Our company's for sale. We're looking to partner with you. We didn't know about you. We're looking for this new technology. Were you surprised at that as well?
I was surprised because I thought as the CEO of Thomas Nelson, my responsibility is to get visibility for my company, to network with other people that can help us accomplish our mission, to sell more of our stuff. Well, as it turns out, social media is fantastic for that. I got more visibility for our company. I did a survey of my readers one time and I said, what do you think the benefit of me being a blogger and on Twitter has been in terms of Thomas Nelson? People said, I'd never even heard of Thomas Nelson before I started following you. I didn't care about your products. Now when I go into a bookstore, I actually look for your products with your logo on the back because I care.
It's amazing. It's very true. It's very true. And that's the power of the platform. What big company, small company, or individuals who want to differentiate themselves, the power of a platform is really there. So thanks for talking to us about it.
Thanks, Skip. Appreciate it.